Good morning. Welcome to Leadership Live with Anton Gunn. It's a pleasure to be with all of you again today. Today, I want to talk about something really important. And I think it's important not just for the times that we're in, but for how things move forward. And I want to acknowledge that we are literally less than 1 week away from the 2024 presidential election. There are also other candidates on the ballot for Congress, and maybe in your state, there's a Senate election. Some places, there's a governor election, and of course, lots of other local elections. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this might be the last time I have a this level of detailed conversation about politics as it relates to the workplace. I'm not going to promise it's the last time, but I know that I want to talk about it right now. In the last week, we have seen and heard some very nasty and hostile things on the political landscape. We have heard negative words about women. We have heard negative words about particular racial and ethnic groups. We've heard negative words about people from parts of the United States and particular territories of the United States, namely Puerto Rico. We have heard a lot of things thrown around that create division and hostility. And I want you to know that there is absolutely no way, and I mean no way, will this tone and tenor of the political landscape not affect your workplace. There will not, there's no way that it will not affect your workplace. And so what I want to do for a few minutes is talk about how you as a leader can lead through the division in our nation's politics that will ultimately show up in your workplace. And I want you to understand that I need you to be a leader as I talk about this. And when I mean be a leader, I want you to know that leadership is not a jacket or a shirt that you can put on and take off when you feel like. That when the temperature is cool, you might want to put on the jacket of leadership. But when the temperature gets hot, when it gets divisive, when it gets tense, when it gets angry, you want to take it off and not be the leader. Absolutely not. We can't do that. See, leadership is not a jacket. Leadership is a lifestyle. It is something that you need to own and embrace and be at all times. Whether things are cool and work is easy, or things are hot and divisive and work is hard, you have a responsibility to be a leader. And it doesn't matter your title, doesn't matter if you got a corner office or you got a thick business card with the big words on it. That's irrelevant. Leadership is who you are, not just what you do. So when I say lifestyle, I want you to understand that I need you to own the responsibility that if you want to keep your organization together, you want to keep your team together, if you want to keep your company together, you have to be a leader right now. In these most divisive political times that most of us will acknowledge in our lifetime, will see in our lifetime. It feels like it's getting worse. I know it does. It does to me. And as someone who works with multiple organizations in multiple different regions of the country, I can tell you that Trump supporters, Harris supporters, pro-life, pro-choice, anti-gun people, pro-gun people, all are in your workplace. I see them. They talk to me. They share things with me. They say things to me. Some of them don't say nothing at all, but I can see by their body language and their behavior that these things are affecting how they show up. So when you have this divisiveness, this tone of negativity around our politics that can come from the outside world. It can come from what they watch on TV. It can come from the people that they follow on social media. It can come from the radio programs that they choose to listen to in their car. It can come from their family members, because not everybody is overtly political, but they might be married to a political animal. Now, I want to give you some things to think about, and most importantly, some things that you need to do as a leader if you're going to lead your workplace through these divisive times. And when I mean lead it, I'm talking about unifying it. I'm talking about unifying your workplace. Like you can't thrive as a company, as an organization. I don't care what your industry is or what you do. You cannot thrive with a divided workplace. What did Abraham Lincoln say one time? A house divided is against itself can't stand. That you have to be the uniter when everybody else is being divided. So I want to give you 5 strategies, 5 things today to think about as you approach the next 6 days and the days after. Because let's be clear, this election has got people on 10 who are normally on 1. And when I mean on 10, that they're looking for an argument, they're looking for a fight, they're looking for somebody to disagree with them. And then they will be happily to be disagreeable. And whether you got a project or you got a vision statement, all of those things are falling secondary to what people want to be divided about. The election is real. So you can be divided about anything. Like I live in a city, in a town where school board elections are divisive because some people want certain books out of the school, other people want certain books in. Some people want the curriculum to change. They want more charter schools. They want, like, I don't know what's going on where you are, but I know it's incredibly divisive. And there's some incredibly divisive candidates. And we see them nationally, and people take their cues from the national candidates and they try to replicate that. Like we don't really like to acknowledge that people like to do what other people do. Like you do whatever things are going to help you to win. That's the reason why I believe that Donald Trump has so many acolytes and clones out here, is because people see him do and say the things that he does, the way that he says those things, and they think they can do the same thing and assure themselves victory. Well-meaning people, or should I say people who I thought were well-meaning, who decided to run for office, are taking on these behaviors of other people because they think that's going to get them favor with certain groups of voters. And it happens on both sides. Certain tenor and tone of how you approach politics will make you think that you can be successful like that person is successful. So it doesn't matter what it is at this point. I know you don't need it in your workplace. I know that if your objective as a leader in the organization in which you operate is peace, safety, security, success, outcomes, goals, metrics, KPIs, like all of the things that people show up to work to do. Nobody shows up to work to fail. They want to be successful. Well, if you want to be successful, you have to know how to lead through division, how to unify your workplace in the face of a polarizing election. Because that's what this is. It's incredibly polarizing. So I want to give you some things to do and to think about, 5 strategies to literally unify your workplace during a polarizing election. So let's get into it. Number 1, the first thing you need to do to unify your workplace during a polarizing election is that you need to set the tone. Now, when I say set the tone, I want you to understand that your responsibility as a leader is to always maintain respect for people, regardless of their differences, regardless of what if they believe something that you don't agree with, you got to remain respectful. Your goal should be seeking to understand, then be understood. That's your first priority. Setting the tone involves respect and understanding. It's also understanding to know that there must be boundaries of what you will talk about, what you won't talk about, what you allow people to talk about, and what you won't allow people to talk about. Now, don't be foolish and think that you can say, you know what, we're not allowing nobody to talk about anything in this workplace. I'm going to tell you in a minute, that's a failed strategy, but you need to set some boundaries. You need to be willing to say, okay, we can talk about the policy positions and whether we agree or disagree, but what we're not going to do is to demean people, call people out their name, say nasty words about people, refer to people in offensive terms. We're not going to do that. You know why we're not going to do that? Because that's not our values. So, yeah, so setting the tone goes to your values. Do you know your values as an organization? Do you know them? And when I mean know them, I'm going to give you an example. Every organization, when I work with them as a keynote speaker, we have a pre-event process where I have them send me their last annual report. I have them send me their last employee engagement survey. I do some interviews with people, right? And then I go to their website. And on every website that I go to, what do I see? I see these words that they call values, our company values, compassion, teamwork, diversity. This might be 4 or 5 words. Those are the words that the company has as their values. But you know what I do in my presentation sometimes? I ask the entire audience of people who are leaders in this organization, okay, we're going to take a minute and we're going to repeat the company values out loud. Number 1 is, and I'll wait for them to say it. And more than half the time, probably 75% of the time, nobody responds when I say your first value is, because they don't know the values. If they don't know the values, it's because you, as a leader, are not setting the tone that these values are important in general. But you really are probably not setting that these values are important during a polarizing election. So you got to remind people about the values. You got to live the values. So if your value is compassion, you got to show compassion for people who might believe differently than you do. If your values are diversity, then you need to value the diverse perspectives of people in the workplace. If your value is teamwork, you need to remind everybody that we're all on the same team. There's no Republican jerseys in this company. There are no Democratic jerseys in this company. The only jersey we got are the ones that we all get a paycheck from. You got to focus on the values. So again, setting the tone means no personal attacks, no divisive language, remembering the values, seeking understanding of people, creating good boundaries, and most importantly, giving respect to every single person. That's your responsibility. That's what leaders do. That's what I mean when I say leadership is a lifestyle. You have to live this every day. It is not a jacket that you can put on and take off. Set the tone, live the values, be the values, and allow everyone to understand that we will only tolerate a conversation in the framework of our values. Otherwise, there could be disciplinary action for coloring outside the lines, of not respecting people. Any personal attacks are off limits. That's the responsibility of a leader. Set the tone. Now, the second thing that you need to do as a leader to unite your team, unite your workforce in a divisive political environment is to focus on what unites you. See, your company has a purpose. Your organization has a purpose. You have a mission statement, a vision statement. I already talked about values. You should have a mission, vision, and values. Whatever organization you're in, you have a reason to exist. And if you have a reason to exist as an organization, you have to remind the people in your organization that they are a part of that reason to exist. That's what it is. So stay focused on those shared goals. Stay focused on the projects that you're working on. Stay focused on the success. You got to keep people focused on the mission, vision, and values. You got to remind them what our mission is. Our mission is to serve customers with the best customer experience possible. That's the mission. It's not to talk about the election. It's not to complain about somebody's tax policy. It's not to complain about the policy that somebody doesn't have. It's not to complain about what he said or she said or they said or who said. Let's get back focused on the mission, the vision, and the values. And so every client that I work with in the pre-event process, I find out what their mission is. I find out what are their three biggest goals. What are the three things that are keeping them from achieving their biggest goals? Why? Because you always have to remind people around what unites you. Like you want to achieve those goals, but you may have some obstacles in the place. So you got to remind people around, here's the things that are keeping us from success. We're struggling with X, Y, and Z. And so in order for us to achieve A, B, and C, we all got to stay focused on X, Y, and Z. So what is your X, Y, and Z that you need to stay focused on? What's the A, B, and C that you need to achieve? That's what your conversation needs to be about as a leader. You got to focus on what unites your people. That's the second strategy in order for you to lead through a divisive political election. Now, the third thing, what you must do is you got to create space for healthy discussion. Yeah, this is what going back to my first point around when I say boundaries, you can't say to people that everything is off limits, that we can't talk about anything, that we can't talk about any political issues, that we just not going to have it. That's a fool's errand if you think you can just, cut all conversation off, because everybody is talking about it. It doesn't matter what the day of the week is. There's something every day in the news that somebody is talking about. And then there's a lot of conspiracy theories and stuff that ain't true. There's a bunch of lies that people are going to talk about the lies, because my grandmother used to say that a lie will travel around the world 7 times before the truth get out the bed and put his pants on. So we know bad news travel fast, lies travel faster, and you can expect that people are going to talk about it. So you can't say that there's no space to talk about those things. But what you can do is create a healthy environment for discussion, a healthy environment for expression. So here's 2 ideas that I encourage you to consider. One might be better than the other, depending on your culture, of your organization, and your leadership style. You can do a safe political discussion, which is some organizations have a town hall meeting where they talk about the candidates' policies and how that might impact their business or industry. So it's safe. I wouldn't do it in the last week, but next time, maybe a month out, maybe 2 months out, say, okay, now we have both candidates, elections coming up in 60 days. Let's talk about each one of their plans as it relates to our business or industry and what it might mean for us. And keep it fact-based, not about their personality, but about the policy. Or you can do this activity, which I think is much better. Rather than having people talk about politics in the workplace, get people involved in an activity that reaffirms your company values, that focuses on channeling people's energy into something that they feel adjacent or aligned to what's going on. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about service activities, volunteer activities. Maybe you take your whole team out to go feed the homeless. Maybe you take your whole team out to go build a house with Habitat for Humanity or some other organization. Maybe you take your whole team out to pick up trash on the side of the road to clean the roads. Maybe you take your whole team out to read to elementary school kids about civility, about decency, about respect. Because the stuff that you don't see coming from the candidates, that you don't see coming from the parties, that you don't see coming from the news on TV, you don't have to replicate that. You can be the opposite of that. You can teach people civility and respect. You can be civil and respectful. And even if you got employees who have shown shown themselves to be disrespectful, give them an activity or encourage an activity that will reinforce the respectful tone. And I'm telling you, going to read to some elementary school kids to talk about civility and respect is a great activity. Trust me, I've done it plenty of times. So that's the third thing, is you got to create kind of a safe environment for expression around what's going on. It could be a town hall for people to ask questions, or it could be some volunteering activities. That's the third thing that you should institute as a leader in your organization as we approach this divisive political election season, and how you bring unity. Again, keep people grounded around stuff that's real. Here's the fourth thing that you need to do, is you need to create a psychologically safe environment. Now, when I say psychologically safe environment, I just did a keynote in West Virginia on psychological safety for a large health system. Had 450 leaders in the room, and we literally went in on psychological safety. So when I say we went in on psychological safety, and what am I telling you to do as a leader, is that I want you to know your job is that if somebody says something that you don't like, if they represent a political position that you don't agree with, what you cannot do is retaliate against them or punish them for having that difference of opinion. You can't do that, because you're making it unsafe for people to speak up and share what they believe. Now, I want to caveat this. You should have policies and procedures that lay the rules of the road. Again, no personal attacks, no negative things. But if someone says in the workplace, well, you know what? I voted for Trump. What you should not do is, because they express their opinion about who they voted for, to say, you know what? I'm going to kick you off this project. Or you ain't going to get no bonus this year because of what you said, who you voted for. Or, I'm going to give you all of the worst assignments because what you said you voted for. You can't do that. You shouldn't do that. Because if that employee is a high performer who someone is doing a good job, but for their own personal reasons voted away differently than you expected them to, you isolating them, ostracizing them, punishing them by taking away duties and responsibilities, or doing any other kind of stuff like that, is wrong. I don't care who they voted for or what they believe in. You don't have to like it. You don't have to agree with it, but you cannot retaliate against them in the workplace. That's not a psychologically safe workplace. And so as a leader, you got to not treat people differently because they think differently than you. Period. I didn't say this was easy, but it's important if you want to maintain your culture through this divisive political election, a very polarizing time. You have to create a psychologically safe workplace. Period. That's what you got to do. Now, number 5, as I get ready to close here, is that you, YOU, in your name, in your image, in your likeness, and what you do every day, you have to lead by example. I'm going to finish where I started. Leadership is a lifestyle. Leadership should be a verb and not a noun. It's not a jacket that you can put on and take off. It's all the time. So you need to lead by example. What does leading by example mean? It means no personal attacks. It means operationalizing your values. It means staying focused on what unites you as a company and talking about those things that unite you. It means creating safe environments for your team and direct reports to express themselves and you not retaliate against them. That you create a safe space for them to do that, a forum for them to have good discussion about the issues that matter. You have to lead by example. And what I'm so sick and tired of, as I look across our political landscape, as I look across the organizations in almost every industry that I've worked in, I mean, aerospace to technology to everything in between. I've been from the rooty to the tooty in terms of industries that I've worked with as a speaker. And I want you to know that we have so many leaders who don't lead by example. And they wonder why they don't have a good culture. They wonder why they don't have a psychologically safe workplace. They wonder why people like to quit. They wonder why people act out and file, EEOC claims against them. Why people have counterproductive workplace behaviors. It all comes back to you as a leader. Are you setting the tone? Are you doing the right things? Are you saying the right things? Are you keeping people focused on the mission and the vision? Or are you muddled down into the pettiness of the politics? Do you volunteer? Do you create safe spaces and talk about the issues and not about the people? Do you mete out and dish out retribution to people who disagree with you? Yes, people do that. They're not good leaders when they do it. If you want to lead through division, if you want to unite your culture through this polarizing election, you got to do these 5 things. You got to set the tone to stay focused on your values. Number 2, you got to focus on what unites you, your mission and your vision. You got to create safe spaces for people to express themselves. You got to create a psychologically safe workplace. And lastly, you have to lead by example. So I want to thank you for watching and listening to this episode of Leadership Live with Anton Gunn. Over the next 6 days, it's going to get more intense. And I'm asking you, I'm begging you to save your culture, to save your organization, to save yourself from a lot of problems, long-term problems, economically impacting problems by leading through division. Remember, leadership is a lifestyle. I want to thank you for watching. Everybody have a fantastic day.